Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. We're still on Icelandic tales, but we're on miscellaneous tales now, so I guess these could actually be anything. So shall we start? The first one's called The Grimsby Man and the Polar Bear. Once during the winter, it happened on the island of Grimsby that all the fires died out and couldn't be rekindled at any of the farms. The weather was calm at the time, and the cold so severe that the Grimsby Sound had frozen over and was thought to be passable on foot. The people then decided to send some men to the mainland to get fire, and they chose 3 of the doughtiest men on the island for the journey. The 3 set out early in the morning in clear weather, and a great many of the islanders followed them out onto the ice to see them off, wishing them a good journey and a speedy return. The emissaries' journey was uneventful until, about midway across the sound, they came upon a crack in the ice that stretched out in both directions as far as the eye could see, and it was wide that 2 of them could barely jump across it. The third one felt unable to. The first 2 then advised the third one to return to the island, and they continued on their way. While he was left on the other side, gazing after them into the distance, loath to turn back in case it might be narrower some other place. I'm not sure what that means. As the day wore on, the sky grew overcast, and the wind turned southerly with a rainstorm. The ice began to break up, and finally the man was left on a floe drifting out to sea. In the evening, the floe ran into a large ridge of ice. The man scrambled onto it. There he saw a female polar bear lying with her cubs a short distance off. Already cold and hungry, he now feared for his life. When the bear caught sight of the man, she looked at him for a while. Then she got up, sauntered over to him and around him, and indicated he should lie down in the lair with her cubs. He did just this, with great trepidation. But then the animal lay down with him and spread herself around him, got him onto her teats, and had him suckle her along with her cubs. Oh my God, that's so strange. What the heck? So the night passed. The day after, the she-bear got up and walked a stone's throw from the lair, beckoning the man to follow. Out on the ice, she lay down at his feet, indicating that he climb upon her back. When he had done so, the creature got up again and shook herself wildly until the man fell off. She made no further attempt for the time being, and the man was greatly surprised at this game. 3 days passed. 3 days. The man huddled in the lair each night with the she-bear, suckling her, and every morning she had him climb on her back and then shook herself until he could not hold on any longer. On the morning of the 4th day, the islander managed to stay on the animal's back no matter how she tried to shake him off. Then in the afternoon, she lowered herself into the sea, the man on her back, and swam with him over to Grimsby. Once ashore, the man walked up on the island, beckoning the bear to follow. He went straight to his home, immediately had his best cow milked, and gave the polar bear as much as she wanted to drink. Then, with the bear following him, he strode off to his sheep cot, and had 2 of his biggest and best wethers killed, bound them together by their horns, and slung them across the animal's back. That done, the she-bear returned to the sea, and swam out to her cubs. This was a moment of great joy in Grimsey, for while the astonished islanders watched the bear recede into the distance, they also saw a boat under full sail swiftly approaching the island, and they were certain that it was bringing back the other two emissaries with the fire. The end. Okay, that is a really freaking bizarre story. I have no idea. I have no remarks of that, I'm afraid. Yeah, interesting to say the least. I don't know what else to say, guys, about that. The next one is Tale of a Raven. Story has it that several farms at Vansadala in North were ruined by landslides from the so-called Vansadala mountain. Among them was one named Gobrastadia. The farmer lived there at the time. He had a daughter who was in the habit of giving a little something to the farm raven whenever she had a meal. Not many people would do this, especially not at that time. One day, as usual, she handed a bit of food out through the window, but the raven would not accept it. The girl wondered what was wrong, and she took the food outside. The raven came up very close to her, but then hopped off again without eating, although it still acted as if it wanted to. In this manner, the girl gradually followed the raven down over the home field some distance from the farmhouse. When they had reached a certain spot, she heard a great big rumble up in the mountain, and before she could turn around, the landslide came down on both sides of them, while the spot they were standing on was spared. The farmhouse was completely buried. This was how the raven repaid the farmer's daughter for the food. But the reason why the landslide didn't fall over the spot where they stood is said to be that once, when Bishop Gudmunda was travelling, he had pitched his tent on the site, and before he left, he had consecrated the campsite as he used to do it in many other places. It is further told that about 3 years later, a certain shepherd was travelling that way. He rode over Scree where the farmhouse had stood. Then his horse stepped into a hole, and the shepherd, reflecting, imagined he must have ridden over the farmhouse, which had caved in. He therefore took a closer look at the hole and smelled a dreadful stench coming out of it. Suspecting the reason, he then piled up a small cairn to mark the spot. When he arrived at his home, he told what had happened, and people went and widened the hole so it could be entered. It proved to be the farmhouse larder, and there was a woman still in it, barely alive. She had supposedly been there when the landslide fell, but the larder wasn't completely levelled because it had been newly rebuilt, and she was able to survive in it because the slide had occurred in the fall, when all the provisions for winter had been stored. The end. Another interesting story indeed. I do like these stories though. I'm gonna obviously leave that here for now, I think, guys, instead of doing another one, because the next one's one of my favourites that's coming up, and it's called The Sealskin, which is a tale I've been long told since I was a child, I must admit. So that will be interesting to listen to. But the polar bear one was so bizarre. I mean, really bizarre, that one. Very unusual indeed. Thank you for listening. Please hit that like button because it does really help. Many blessings.